Politics really used to hurt my head, trying to find the difference between blue and red, till I found a way that I could take that scene. Come on everyone, we're going green, working from the ground up for democracy, social justice, non-violence, ecology. Got to save our planet from the corporate lie. Come on, love the earth, it's the only home we've got. Politics really used to hurt my head, trying to find the difference between blue and red, till I found a way that I could take that scene. Come on everyone, we're going green. Come on everyone, we're going green.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Go Green, the Green Party show here in Colorado. Tonight we're here with Bob Kinsey, who's running for the U.S. Senate, and Gary Swing, who's running for Congress here in Denver in District 1. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about their campaigns. Bob's going to spin some paper, and we're just talking about kind of the purpose of running these campaigns and what we're trying to do and the accomplishments that we're trying to have within the Green Party, whether or not we're trying to win, whether or not we're trying to just prove a point. I'd like to hear what everybody is really trying to attempt to do. And I guess we can start with Gary, who's running against Diana DeGette, who's been in for, is it 6 terms now?
I think that's correct. I'm running in one of the most solidly Democratic districts in the country. Right. It's assumed that Diana DeGette is going to be the winner. There's even the Republican candidates who run in this office are generally not taken very seriously as candidates. The incumbent seems to have the attitude that she can win no matter who runs. Anyone can run, but no one can beat her. It takes a lot of money to be taken seriously running a campaign like this, and there are a lot of obstacles to being taken seriously as a candidate. It's not just the money, it's also being shut out of debates, lack of media coverage, exclusion from any kind of candidate forum. We have a voting system that's very biased towards the 2 major parties. There's the power of incumbency. I don't really expect to win. It'd be great if I did, but it's a real uphill battle to do it. Right. I'm going to be outspent 1,000 to 1, 10,000 to 1, I expect in this election. Right. I am running to take a stand for what I believe is right, to provide voters with a real choice in this election. Right. I'm the only candidate running for this office who will take a stand against American imperialism, to call for a real sustainable society, to call for real health care reform based on a single-payer model.
How has she sat on health care reform, for instance?
Diana DeGette is very much an establishment politician. She votes for the Democratic Party 99% of the time. She's deputy whip for the House of Representatives for the Democratic Party. Right. And she's backed the Obama health care program, which essentially is a corporate welfare system. It's not real health care reform. She talks about health care in vague terms on her campaign website without any real detail. But she's not out there promoting true health care reform. And the Democrats under the Obama administration have probably done more to set back the cause of true health care reform in this country than any previous administration.
Right. Having to backtrack will actually cost money and time that we shouldn't have spent that way.
The system that they're putting in place will just benefit healthcare corporations and will not benefit the people.
Right. I just recently learned that the healthcare corporations are actually the largest donator to Congress and to the Senate. I actually didn't know that until just recently, which I find really fascinating considering most of that money goes into the Democratic Party. Have you had any experience with Diana DeGette here in Denver?
Well, we've lobbied her several times in Denver about various issues like Palestine-Israel issue, but healthcare as well. It was another issue that we lobbied her on, and of course we lobbied for single payer because both Gary and I are single payer advocates as the way to really save money and provide people with health care that they need. Right. There are some things in the health care bill that do provide health care to some other people, but not in a fiscally responsible way. and we just think that's wrong.
As a citizen activist, have you felt like she's been receptive to either of you as far as lobbying to her?
Well, she met with us once. Usually, we get her office manager in Denver, or she usually sends us one of her lower down, young aides in Washington, D.C. when we go to lobby her on military affairs,
right,
which she doesn't seem to be terribly interested in one way or another.
Right. I think that's, as a Green Party issue, grassroots democracy, and something that, for me, rings really true when we're talking about being able to get a hold of. I mean, she represents our district here in Denver, and yet when you go to lobby her, you get somebody who is unreceptive and sends you a representative. So when somebody like Gary, puts a fight up against that, I think it's something that we all need to get behind and try to push forward as somebody who will actually probably come down and talk with you and actually have that conversation as a representative of the people. And I think that's a really interesting kind of topic to think about.
Right.
The Colorado Democrats seem not to get things the way the Green Party does, particularly in foreign policy issues, I think. I can remember a meeting over at a Lutheran church in North Denver right after they voted to give Bush the money to go into Afghanistan right after 9/11. And the church was filled with people who were outraged, saying, we're getting had. This is a bad policy decision. And she stood up there and said, I had no idea that so many of people would be upset about this.
Right, because she's not paying
and
attention to
same
people.
with Mark Udall. There, he was totally flabbergasted that this church was filled with people who had a whole different read on what was going on. And of course, we had talked with her about those issues throughout the 90s, the embargo on Iraq and the hundreds of thousands of people who were losing their lives because of that embargo, and she seemed to just ignore the issue.
That seems to be the general case, and I think that's...
Mark Udall seemed to ignore the issue.
Major party candidates for Congress generally ignore the reality of American foreign policy. In my race against Diana DeGette, neither Diana nor the Republican candidate for the office, Mike Fallon, say anything about foreign policy at all on their campaign platforms.
It seems to be
just don't address it at all. The U.S. has soldiers in 156 countries around the world right now. We're constantly involved in one war after another, all based on false pretenses. These wars are always sold to the American people on the basis of lies. Diana DeGette has supported the administration's position in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, which are illegal and immoral wars. We need to withdraw all our troops from those countries immediately and prosecute American war criminals involved in those illegal interventions. But you're not going to get that kind of a change by voting for a Democrat or Republican.
Right.
The money that we're spending on those wars in the Middle East is more responsible for our deficit than all the money that was spent for TARP to bail out the banks, which we don't agree with either, but nevertheless, all that money that was spent in that way doesn't hold a candle to the money we're spending on war.
Yeah, right. And with all these other topics that we could bring up, I mean, you've got these, 3 cups of tea, stones into schools. I mean, instead of blowing things up, maybe we could start building things and helping people. That idea of actual foreign policy being something to help things. You can bomb the world into pieces, but you can't bomb it into peace. That awesome quote. I mean, it's something to really think about.
There's a concept for national security.
Right, exactly. I actually there's a banner up with the guy whose name is escaping me right now that wrote 3 cups of tea and stoned into school, and I think it's a really amazing kind of concept for us to put forward, and for you guys as candidates, something that, why does our foreign policy have to be blow it up and then rebuild it? Why can't we just help and do no harm, that principle kind of thing. So.
The current budget for the military, including deficit spending, is $1.4 trillion, or 48% of federal income tax dollars.
Right.
It's a ridiculous amount of money that we're wasting.
That's
on killing people and projecting U.S. power abroad.
Right, and the amount of money that we could be spending on actually building things rather than hurting people.